To all of our honored guests, recipients, their families, our elected officials, members of the board and associates of the Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park, thank you for having this ceremony, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to say a few words about my dear friend, Lou Palma. A couple of words were used today that really, I think, captured some of the feelings I had coming to this event. The first word was used by Senator Kennedy, heartbroken. Tim, that's exactly how I felt yesterday when Laura called me on my way into the fair with my wife to tell me that Lou had passed, heartbroken. And the other word that was used was by Assemblywoman Peter Stokes, who used the word heavy heart. I came to this event today with a heavy heart. But that heavy heart was relieved by the Palma family, specifically Luann, his daughter, who said to me, Lou would want us to be happy today. Lou would not want us to be mourning. He'd want us to be talking about his life, celebrating his life, laughing with him. And so that took a little bit of that cloud away, Luann. Thank you for that. I do want to take you back to the 1999 race for county executive. Tough race, as most political contests are. And that race was about a lot of things, mostly taxes. That was the big issue that got most of the public attention. But there was another issue that was talked about, and I was involved in the strategy of that campaign. And the issue was the issue of the Veterans Department losing its accreditation. And the candidate made a pledge, that was Joel Jomber, that if he were elected, he would return that accreditation to the Veterans Department within a year. And that message was repeated many, many times, not to the general public, but to the veteran community of Western New York. That pledge was taken very, very seriously. And upon becoming county executive and deputy county executive, that was one of our main goals, was to get that accreditation back. And to do it, we needed the right person. And as you recall, the first year or more of the Jomber administration, Joel was battling a very serious bout of throat cancer. And it was difficult. It was difficult to put together a government and run a government with all of the complications of that. And what we would do is he would go through the resumes of different people for department head status, narrow it down to 3 people, and then ask me to interview them and rate them 1, 2, and 3. I did that with literally every department head in Erie County, including Lou Palma, and 2 others. And needless to say, Lou was #1 on the list. There was not even a close second. Lou became the Commissioner of Veterans Affairs. And I have 2 impressions of Lou from the first time I met him. One was he was of the old school when it came to work. And I always like working for people of the old school because it's very easy. They're not immersed in a lot of modern psychology about the workplace and jobs. Very simple, 3 words: do your job. That's all, do your job. If you meet my expectations, that's great. If you exceed them, I'll really love you. But that's how Lou approached his job with his staff: do your job. I always like working with people like that. Secondly, Lou was, in a true Christian sense, a servant leader. Now, there's 2 types of leaders in this world. There's servant leaders and there's self-serving leaders. They're totally different, and you know them immediately upon meeting them. What characterizes a servant leader is, #1, they're concerned about not I, but team. And they surround themselves with good teams of people who can do the job and can be entrusted and delegated with doing the job. They're not intimidated by good, talented people around them. Secondly, they seek input from those people and others, including constructive criticism. They're not taken aback, they're not taken offense by constructive criticism. They understand that everyone has limits and limited talents, and you need other people, and you need to know what you're doing wrong in order to improve it. And third, they share in the old axiom that you'll be amazed how much you can accomplish if you're willing to share the credit. Those are the 3 characteristics of a servant leader. Lou approached every part of his life with those characteristics and tendencies first and foremost. Whether it was serving his family, his country, his community, or his fellow veterans, it was all about service to others. And guess what? We got that accreditation back under Lou's leadership. Promise made, promise kept. I have so many memories of Lou. I want to share 2 with you today. One is funny and one serious. Like all large departments, there are different folks along the spectrum of performance. Some meet your expectations, some exceed your expectations, and some are a major headache. It was a good thing Lou had one particular person who obviously will go nameless, but who was his headache. It's a good thing Lou was gray and silver when he came into county government, because if he wasn't, this person would have made him that way. And this guy would do some very outrageous things. And Lou would come to me, because Lou would reported to me directly, and he would come to me and I would let him vent. And he would just unload about all of the goofy things that were going on with this guy, and problems he was causing, and I'd let him vent. And then we would sit and look at each other, and some of these things were just so funny, we would start laughing. You couldn't make this up, and we would just laugh, and he would leave the office, and I'd say, Lou, look, you got to be a good soldier. The guy's not going anyplace. You got to deal with it, just like you did in the military. He'd say, all right, you're right, thank you for letting me vent. And next week he'd be back with another outrageous story. We'd laugh again. I'd say, Lou, you got to be a good soldier. The other incident that occurred was in 2004, and that was the year that Lou and I served as co-chairs of the Vietnam Wall experience, the movable wall that comes to your town. We planned this for almost a year. We were in meetings. And you may know that it's traditional that when that wall comes to your town, it's escorted into your community with a motorcycle honor escort. And so we put together an event. We met at Mang Field in Kenmore, where the wall was going to be displayed for the weekend. And I had hoped to get maybe 300 or 400 bikers, and we had almost that many just at Mang. And then we took off on a route down to Evangola State Park, where we were going to meet up with the truck that had the wall. And all along the way, we were joined by more bikers. And then we got to Evangola State Park, and there were 400 or 500 bikers there. Well, by the time we finished, we had 1,500 motorcycles. The procession stretched for 7 miles. The driver of the truck said in all his years driving that wall from city to city, he had never seen a motorcycle honor procession as large and impressive as the one in Western New York. A real commentary about the way we deal and the way we treat our veterans, the esteem we hold our veterans in. That was on Thursday. We had a ceremony at Evangola State Park, and someone took pictures of that event and had them blown up for me. And I've saved them all these years. And I knew exactly where they were. And last night I went down and I found them. And it's funny, they were all single pictures except one. Somebody had made a duplicate of this one picture. And the picture shows Ed Rakowski leading the invocation, and myself and Lou. And Luann and Hank, I'd like to present you with a copy of that picture from the Vietnam Wall experience. I'd like to give you. That was Thursday. On Friday, we had a special ceremony in the evening, a candlelight ceremony. And it was a day much like this. It was overcast, chilly, and very, very windy. I'm talking 25 to 30 mile an hour sustained winds all day long. And all day I was worried, how are we going to do a candlelight ceremony? Because the ceremony called for, Lou would light the first candle, his own candle. He would turn to me and light my candle, and then we would both go down to the audience, and I would start here and light this candle, and Lou would start there, and then everybody would light each other's candles all the way through. We had hundreds of people there. So I'm saying to myself, I don't know how this is going to happen with 30 mile an hour winds. So we go through the ceremony, we have speeches. I believe there was a Medal of Honor winner that night who spoke, and the wind is howling, howling. Lou and I go to light the candles. We strike the match, and I'm serious, I'm not exaggerating. As the match hit the matchbook and Lou began to strike it, the wind stopped. I don't mean it went from 30 to 5 miles an hour, it went to 0. It absolutely became calm. I'll never forget the look on Lou's face as we just looked at each other, mouths open, and said, something very, very special just happened. I'll never forget that. I'm not exaggerating at all. It just stopped. Those are my memories I wanted to share with you about Lou. I will tell you this, my wife and I just got back from a trip to France, and we went on one of these Viking river cruises. And this trip was my choice. And I picked it because one of the destinations on this trip was to the Normandy beachhead. And it's always been on my bucket list that I wanted to go to Omaha Beach. So we spent a whole day there. And they do a wonderful ceremony at the American Cemetery. They play the Star Spangled Banner, they play taps. A young French girl comes out and gives a very sincere speech about how grateful the people of France are to America for sending its husbands and fathers and brothers and sons to France, to liberate France. And then she asked, are there any veterans in this group from World War II? We had two. And one of them wore a baseball cap that said, proud veteran of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And when I met him, I said to my wife, the only other person I know in my life who was a veteran of World War II, Korea, and Vietnam was Lou Palma. And he carried himself just like Lou, quiet dignity, quiet pride, not pride in what he accomplished, Lou accomplished, but pride of service. Service to others, service to community, family, and nation. That's how that generation carried themselves. If Lou were here today, he'd probably tell us, yeah, I don't deserve this award. I'm accepting it on behalf of all those vets who didn't come home. I'm no doubt in my mind to say that. I think that as we sum up Lou's life, there are no more appropriate, fitting words than from the Apostle Paul in his second letter to Timothy, and we've all heard them. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the course. I have kept the faith. Lou, rest in peace, my friend.